Can you hear me now? Maybe you can hear me now, Peter. I have no idea what is going on. Every time I try to set this stuff up, it changes on me and doesn't work. Man, why is the stream not working? Oh, now I'm a little quiet. Okay. That I can fix. I think that should be better probably. And I need to change that again. Goodness gracious. Okay, now seems like I can be heard. I got the stream chat showing up as well. That way, I mean, I guess people can just watch the chat, so maybe that's not very useful. I'll just hide that for now then. Hey, Drafty, how's it going? And hello, Mike. Thank you guys for joining. Sorry, just trying to sort out some technical difficulties that I seem to not be able to avoid. Seems like every time I try to do this with Launch Party, it does not like it. Hello, Milton. How's everybody doing? We'll try to get the actual stream set up here, or going. Sorry, we'll try to get it going here in a moment. I'm trying to get it to work on the... I wonder if it's just me on the Backerkit page. Can, if I share our Backerkit page, our launch party... Peter, if you don't mind, I'm just going to drop in our Discord server that the stream is live. Okay, so I'm hoping that it's just an error on my end. Yeah, it works until I go live. Exactly, Drafty. I've streamed in the past with no problems, but I don't know, something about trying to get the integration onto our Backerkit page, it just doesn't seem to work. Like for me specifically, every time I try to watch the stream, it doesn't work. It just says that there's been an error and that the playback ID is bad. So people are supposed to be able to look. Here, let me see if I can't pull it up just to show you guys what I'm trying to do. So what I'm trying to do here is our launch party page is supposed to have this stream active, but just doesn't seem to want to work. So I'm not sure what's going on. I've tried to have Backerkit help, but maybe if somebody can tell me if they can go to the page and can see it. Yeah, you get the same error. Yeah. Yep, and I have everything set up properly according to their directions, so I don't know. Hopefully people see it on Launch Party and can try to fix it. I'm going to have to... I've already tried, but I'm going to have to get Backerkit support to try to help me out. But anyways, let me remove this and we'll go ahead and get started asking questions. So, we got some questions already set up from folks beforehand. So I can start asking that, unless anybody here, like Drafty or Mike, if you have questions, especially Mike, it would be really cool to hear about your experience playing the game with your group. That would be really cool. So maybe if you have any questions based on that session, that would be awesome to answer those. I would love to answer your questions. And then if I need to show something, what I can do is, I guess I did it last time. I probably should do it again. Is pull up the rules. So let me do that. That way, in case rules come up, I have the rules up and ready to answer, or ready to show, so we can answer them. So I think, there we go, yep. Let's go ahead and do that. We'll do 50% size here. And there we go. Okay, so let me just increase the size of this a little bit here. There we go. Okay, so if we have any questions from people on stream, that would be great. Otherwise, I think I can just hop in on some of the Q&A questions that I have. I know there's a small delay, even though I set it up that there should not be a delay. But yeah, I figured, Peter, you don't have any other questions, so I'll go ahead and start answering some of those, because definitely some of those were very fun. Okay, so we'll go ahead and start answering some questions here. So Peter, the Tales from Elsewhere designer, he asked, who is your favorite comic book villain? For me, out of all of the comic book villains that I know, that's kind of a tough one, but I guess I would probably have to go with Green Goblin, just because he's a good, interesting villain. So I don't know. He challenges Peter in a lot of different ways, and I know he's different in the comics than in the movies too, for the most part. But I'm sure my Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire Spider-Man experience kind of colors that answer. But I don't know. Villains, I feel like the villains are only made great by their interactions with the hero. And so I don't know, I focus on more the hero aspect of it, which hero kind of makes that interaction work, right? The best villains are good villains because they're a difficult challenge for the hero to face, right? So yeah, that would be my answer for sure. So Mike said, everyone liked the combat rules quite a bit. Couldn't find my battle map, so I used a ruler for movement and playing cards for terrain. And that worked well with the rules. Wow, that is so awesome, Mike. That is really interesting that you played no grid. And we did design it to work that way, right? So if you use a ruler, you can just measure every inch for units. And, areas stay as squares. Cones are the ones that would probably be hardest. Maybe what we'll have to make sure we do is for the cones in the Supers Information Codex, and when we update the primer, is maybe give them a degree reference for if you're using them on no grid, like on a gridless map. That would probably be a good tool to have, I would imagine. So glad that's awesome that worked, though. Really cool. And then Drafty, what archetype power set did you find the most challenging to implement? Ooh, as far as implementation, I think gadgetry was probably one of the hardest. Yeah, I'm trying to think through just like the design process. And I think gadgetry was the one that had given us the most trouble because, oddly enough, it's the most broad potentially. And so we had done, and you can see it in the primer, there's a good amount of powers that kind of interact with other power set things. I think we actually partially moved this to the inherent effect. So with the inherent effect of gadgetry, it used to be something very different. And then we changed it to this. Oh, nice. Here, clicks. I can't help but get distracted when I see a message pop up. But yeah, I think that was just the hardest one because we want it to be widely usable, but also still have a pretty strong theme. Just in Indominant, the way we have the power sets, right? Like fire manipulation, it's got a very strong theme, but also in combat, it's like role and theme are mostly damage focused. We try to have a good variation of like utility, support, damage, defense, things like that. But fire tends to be very offensive, and so that was pretty easy. Whereas gadgetry feels like a lot of utility, and we kind of let it dip into some of the other power sets. Like I said, with the inherent effect and some of its powers, like it gets a freeze ray, gets like a hidden flamethrower that does a little cone of flame, stuff like that. So it can kind of bounce off of other power sets pretty well, which is really unique and interesting. But yeah, it was quite difficult to like implement correctly. And we also had a lot of fun making it sort of like a zany, wacky power set to a degree. We don't want that to be like so ingrained into it that you have to have it be that way. Like, so Ricky made a lot of the powers and the themes of it, and he loves Rick and Morty. And I agree, it's very fun to have like that kind of any tool for the moment kind of idea. And so that was also something we were trying to balance in there. So yeah, I think that was so far the most challenging to implement. Now, we have some other power sets on the horizon that we want to make that I think will be harder to implement for sure. Like specifically super speed would be one that's really hard to implement. We're talking about what may or may not be our first expansion power set, which probably at least like 2 years down the road. But if we're thinking about like shape shifting, and whether that means transforming into animals like Beast Boy or just different objects, more like Martian Manhunter or what is it? I think it's Rubber Man in DC. I don't think that's his name, but where, just changing into like shaped objects. We're not sure yet, but I think that's going to be really hard. Plastic Man, yes, Plastic Man. He's a really good idea of like that other side of it, right? You could either turn into animals and stuff like that, or into objects. So I think we'll probably go that way where it's can fit both of those, just because I don't know what like specific details might separate the two into different power sets. But I think that'll be fun, but also pretty hard. And then Mike, yes, he used HeroClix, the Marvel HeroClix. That is awesome. HeroClix, funny enough, for me, I love HeroClix. So I know this is like a huge tangent, but one of my old favorites, this is Mage Knight, and HeroClix is super similar. I think there's a very heavy relation between... Oh, I was talking away from the camera, but I think there's a really heavy relation between Mage Knight and HeroClix. I know that Mage Knight came first, and I'm pretty sure HeroClix kind of spawned from that. But yeah, I definitely like a lot of the HeroClix stuff for sure. Yeah, HeroClix are very... Well, I think they're popular, but maybe they're not super popular. I actually never played HeroClix, but I played a lot of Mage Knight with my brother when we were young. So yeah, super awesome. Hopefully we can get stuff like that someday. I guess we wouldn't need the twisty base, just because that wouldn't necessarily be a mechanic. I don't know, maybe that could be some way, but like health changes for like player characters, so having a dial with numbers on it wouldn't work for customizability and like change. But it would be fun maybe for a different game or something. So what I'm gonna do here, I'm just gonna mark some questions that we had collected beforehand. That way I know in case I don't get to some of them, and I'm gonna kind of go through each person's list that submitted questions. We can answer the ones that don't get answered next time. So next, Sasha in our Discord server asked, is there any danger, and this is probably going to lead me down a huge tangent, but is there any danger of a meta plot forming within Indominant, or will the setting simply stay as a possible backdrop for the games? So I'm not 100% sure exactly how we're going to handle things, but I know for sure we will be expanding the universe. So the setting will have, I guess not necessarily a meta plot, but things will change within the setting, right? And so currently the lore in the setting is that all of the 10 power sets, those are the types of powers that people have in the canon lore. And they're not specific enough to where they tell you, you know, you can't use, like Heatsink is a good example, right? He uses technology to do fire. That makes me want to share some art, but I probably shouldn't. I think I've shared parts of it in our Discord, but we had some awesome art of Heatsink done by Milton. Probably my favorite piece so far because it's just so awesome. It's like a comic book page. So he uses technology, but you could also use magic to use fire. And so the way you use your powers isn't locked in too much right now. There's a lot of freedom there, but you know, we don't have powers for we don't really have, you know, powers for like dark energy or anything like that, or like I said, super speed technically doesn't exist in the lore, and that's why it's not an available power set. And so as we expand the power sets that are available, that will kind of come with that expansion of the lore, and we'll add some new canon characters that are like the main Indominant universe, and that character or that super will be the like representation or icon for that power set. So we'll have it's kind of an idea that Paizo does with Pathfinder, and I like it, but having characters that are like lore accurate, or like lore characters that have these different power sets and fit all of the archetypes and stuff like that. So we're going to expand to have more than one character for each power set, but with those, we have been thinking that we will have some of the like setting and storyline advance or change. So we don't want to have it to where the whole universe changes. You know, a good example, I guess, would be like to compare it to Marvel, right? Like the Thanos snap with the Infinity Gauntlet. We're not going to have anything like that where it changes the entire universe. Maybe that would be a fun way to like do a new edition down the road, is have like some reality warping event, and that's what makes the rules of the game different, because they're there's something that already exists in the setting. So I don't know, might be fun to do something like that. But generally what we'll do is more give kind of like new places or occurrences that happen for the players to interact with, and we'll also be creating like pre-made missions. We call campaigns missions or mission arcs. So we'll create mission arcs and things like that that will have story pieces, and some of those might come out with expanded content, but they won't necessarily drive a specific plot throughout the whole setting. It's mostly meant to be a backdrop, but it has the idea at least is that it has interesting points that you can use as jumping off points for your own game sessions. If you want, of course. You don't have to, but yeah. So sort of a long-winded... Oh yeah, no multiversal shenanigans. I'm really against that. So yeah, and then Drafty, you mentioned the condition tracker. That would be really cool if you had a dial for that. It would just be hard because you couldn't really mark multiple if it was attached to the base and worked like these guys. So like, I'll just grab the same one I had. It's dusty and it's hard to see, but you can see on here they have. Well, so there's like, you can't quite see it because it's a little blurry, but you have, maybe I can get it to focus there. So anyways, you have like your health, and you spin the dial and it's got preset information there. So something specific like that probably wouldn't work just because you could only have one condition shown. But I know that people do like condition rings, and I'm sure there's some way to do like some base where you can maybe, I'm trying to think without it being too fiddly, but maybe just like little flaps or something that you can slide or flip open and closed to show that there's a condition, but that gets a little fiddly, and a small piece, doing things with small pieces like that can break them. So I don't know, something like that would be super cool though, for sure. Condition tracker rings, and the like, for sure. And yes, I love the iconics that Pathfinder does. As mentioned, right, they make great pre-gens, and that's exactly what we do. All 10 of our pre-gens, we have one for each power set right now. They're all like our version of iconics. They're supers that have a story and a preset lore within the universe. So yeah. And then I could go for ages on the whole multiversal thing. I'm not a big fan of it. It makes stories not matter. But we'll continue on with the Q&A. Maybe next time, if somebody wants to ask a question about that, I would go on a massive tangent for sure. So. And then Charles asked, in my opinion, or in your opinion, what is the best superpower in any media? This one is another really hard question, kind of like Peter's. In any media, the best superpower. So if I were to lock it down to like one specific superpower, and the way I'm going to think about this and approach this is from the mindset of like a specific tied in. Yeah, I'll have to jump to Charles' fourth question for sure. Like Superman, for example. I wouldn't consider, the way I look at superpowers, I wouldn't consider Superman's powers as like one superpower, even though I know they're all tied to him being a Kryptonian. To me, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to to have like all these different seemingly unconnected powers considered as like one power set. So with one superpower that I think is the best in all of media, I don't know. It's a really hard question to answer, but I'm going to go with, I don't know, super strength. Like, it's just kind of fun and interesting to me. Like, my favorite character is Hulk, for example. And so, I don't know, I'm definitely biased there. But just the idea of his rage and anger, like building up his strength, is really cool. I know that's a little hyper specific, but that's what I'll go with, is super strength, but specifically that like anger fueled super strength. So, and then yes, Charles's fourth question that he asked me, one of his questions was, who do I think is funnier, Frank or Charles? Or sorry, oh, he did ask Frank or Charles. I thought he asked Frank or Peter earlier. Dang, well, my joke's ruined. I was going to say the real answer isn't on the list that he gave me, but it's Charles, since he asked such a funny question. I don't know, I think they both have their moments, but Charles is definitely very funny. So, it depends on the situation. We'll go with that as the answer. Yeah, so next we'll go back up to, yeah, I was laughing because when I saw that question from Charles, I thought he asked between Frank and Peter, and so yeah, I just thought it was going to be funny if I said it's neither of them, it's Charles. But I'm not good at reading, apparently. So, okay. Next, Peter's question: which era of comics is your favorite? So, if we're going like Golden Age, Silver Age, stuff like that, I'd have to say yes, Drafty. Yes, from What Is Tabletop. They become friends of us. Peter and I both chat with them quite a bit, and they actually played a session of Indominant, and they will be posting a video about that down the road. So, really exciting, honestly. That one I can't wait to see. I got to watch. I felt special. They let me watch the session ahead of time. But yeah, just can't wait for everybody to see that. They had a lot of fun and really showed off the system. It was cool to watch. That was like the first full session I've seen in like a single sitting. We had there was an actual play of Indominant that Aaron, he used to actually be on our team. He and his friends, they have an actual play of D&D that they do, and they did some Indominant sessions. So we got to see them, but their videos, it's very smart, especially because you end up playing for a long time. But they broke them out into different parts, and so they were each sort of like self-contained sessions, but at the same time all strung together. So it was just different to see like that single session from start to finish kind of thing, especially since it was a one-shot, so it's like that encapsulated story. It was just awesome. But back to Peter's question, which era of comics is my favorite? I think I'd have to go Silver Age or Golden Age, one of the two, just because I really like the very positive like monument of like perfection or idealism. That's really what I like out of superheroes. So to me, I think that's the best. Like, superheroes are supposed to be, perfect in a way. Let me turn on my fan. I'm getting warm, and I need to drink some water. Okay, it looks like there's actually not that big of a delay. I keep thinking there's like a huge delay, but it looks like there's just a couple seconds, so that's not bad. Yes, we are definitely good friends because we agree on our comic book tastes. I mean, that's what superheroes are about, really, right? I just don't like too much like the... Oh, is my fan picking up? I hope not. Yeah, it looks like my fan's picking up. Hang on, I'll turn my fan back off. So, yeah, it's just, I don't watch a superhero with superpowers who's, like technically a superhuman, right? They're like above and beyond what a human is, just to like do horrible things. Like, it's that idealism in a way that makes superheroes great. Oh, it wasn't too bad. Okay. I mean, I'm okay. I think I'll survive. It's a little warm for sure, but yeah. Okay. And next, we'll go to Sasha's second one. So I think I asked him for some clarification. Let me just double check to make sure I remember properly. Okay. Yeah. Comic book adaptations. So Sasha asked which character was done the dirtiest in adaptation. I think for me, I mean, I would say Hulk. And it's not... He had two good movies. The Eric Bana Hulk was good, and so was... why am I going to space? He's my favorite Hulk. But, yeah, I think he was done the dirtiest, especially in, like, the MCU universe. Or, I guess, universes in the word MCU. But he wasn't the Hulk, really, to me. They went, like, the... I forget what the name they give him is, but like the smart Hulk, the in control Hulk, And I always liked that one, except what I remember reading of that in comics and stuff, he's still sort of monstrous and has like anger problems. He's not just like a normal person, but green and big, you know. Like the first couple MCU movies did a pretty good job, I think, with Hulk, and then he fell off a cliff. He just became not powerful and wasn't important. I mean, he disappeared for a bit, and it was cool to see him get to be the one who wound back time with their makeshift Infinity Gauntlet. But then he literally didn't do anything. But also, like, I think it was the first. Oh gosh, what was the first Infinity War movie? Of the Infinity Saga, where Hulk wouldn't come out because of like the worry about hurting people and stuff like that, which is a battle that Bruce Banner has normally though with the Hulk. That's supposed to be a Bruce Banner thing. Yeah, Professor Hulk. Thank you, Mike. And I'll get to your question here in a second, Drafty. Sorry, but yeah, he's still supposed to battle his inner demon that way, but it's supposed to be Bruce battling Hulk, not the other way around. So it was just very odd to me. It wasn't like the Hulk that I like very much. So I always liked Professor Hulk in the comics, though, because he was smart, but I don't know. Maybe it's just to adaptate the versions I read, but he just wasn't like that where he didn't do anything interesting. Like he still was the Hulk and would fight and get angry. So yeah. So Drafty's question. I'm sure we all have opinions about Batman versus Superman or Punisher and someone like Captain Marvel. What does that look like in play for Indominant? Mundane versus superpowers. Awesome. So in Indominant, the way that looks in gameplay and mechanically is that we don't have characters that are intended to be like Superman, where they're just like gods. Supers are not that level of power. Even the highest level supers, like Indominus, right here to my left. Well, on camera it's my left. On screen it's my left. He would be our version of Superman, but he just has super strength. And so he is not just some invincible god, you know. He has super strength that helps protect his body from harm, but not to the point where he's just bulletproof. And to me, that just means that the supers are vulnerable. They're not invincible. And so a super-powered character would be a match for like a highly trained or high-tech kind of based character like Batman. You know, all of Batman's planning and gadgets would absolutely hold up to a superhero like Indominus with his super strength. Obviously, the idea would be Batman's not brute forcing Indominus any day, but at the same time, Batman could beat Indominus in a fight, right? Or our version of Batman, somebody with gadgets, they could beat Indominus through use, like clever and smart use of their gadgets and stuff like that. So there's not really just a permanent gap in power, if you will. Like the lowest level super against the highest level super, there's going to be like that gap in power, of course. But you know, I would consider Batman is supposed to be like a really powerful high level super. You know, if we were to look at DC as like a game of Indominant, Batman would be still like level 15 to 20 to me, and so would Superman. They would be on par, but you know, obviously in reality, DC and Marvel, I guess neither of them do, but Batman and Superman doesn't work that way. And that is interesting to me that like Batman can't just beat Superman, but I think he can still be on par with Superman without being the same like physical power. Like he can beat Superman because he's smart and he's clever and he plans, you know, and he has the countermeasures for everything that Superman does. That would be how it works in Indominant, where they're on a like level playing field, but in a different way. Kind of goes into the game design aspect too, which obviously I can I could go for hours on. I love talking about game design, but thinking about like a bruiser, right? They are super strong and super durable, and if you looked at it very two-dimensionally, you would say, oh, a bruiser is stronger than a blaster, but a blaster, they are going to do really good damage, but they have to play smart and maybe even use teamwork or just use proper tactics to keep the bruiser at bay, stuff like that. So yeah, and absolutely what Peter said, Indominus is our version of Superman, but he's very grounded, and everything is very grounded like that. I think even Golden Age Superman still is too powerful, but he was definitely on a better scale, I would say. And yes, like Peter said, like Clark Kent in Smallville, definitely like maybe mid Smallville, not too late in Smallville when he gets like super strong, but yeah, more of that like early, but he knows how to use his powers and he's well trained, right? He's like an experienced super, but he's the power scale maybe more like early Clark Kent in Smallville for sure. Okay, and now it's sort of on topic, but Charles asked another question, and Charles asked, what do you think is the most overrated superhero and supervillain? So my superhero answer is for sure, without a doubt, Superman. And it's just because of like the last couple decades, like the last like 10 to 20 years, maybe even more than that, honestly. He's just too powerful. I don't find it that interesting or fun. I think a good superhero has to conquer challenges that are more than just interpersonal or philosophical, right? Like villains going after Lois Lane, right? Or trying to paint him as a bad guy. I think, oh geez, what was it called? It's the one with the Elite. I think, Peter, you talked about that at one point. But it's that animated movie with the Elite. Like that, in some ways it's such a cool story, but in others it like reinforces the problem I'm talking about, where Superman was just pretending the whole time. Like, he never was actually in danger whatsoever. He just pretended like he was to show them the error of their ways. And yes, it was a great story and it was well written. Oh, was it actually just called Superman versus the Elite? Okay. Yeah. I don't think I ever read anything from DC Rebirth, so I think it fits for Superman to have those like more interpersonal problems and things like that because he's just so powerful. But I think a good superhero can have all the different types of challenges. Sure, their stories might focus on specific types of challenges. Like I think Spider-Man is a good example. I think he's probably overrated too, but he's not as overrated as Superman. A lot of stories end up having Peter just being so strong too now, where he doesn't really have to overcome physical challenge. So in general though, I think he always had like some villains that were a physical challenge for him to overcome, like the Lizard, or Lizard Man, even Sandman, Venom, right? They are physical challenges, or they should be physical challenges for him to overcome. And then he also has all of his like interpersonal and like his philosophical problems that he has to overcome. So I think that's why Spider-Man is such a great superhero, is he's had his time to kind of deal with all the different types of challenges, and he's not just always going to come out on top physically. And I think that just makes it fun. And then for the most overrated supervillain, I think that one, oddly, I like him in a lot of ways, but the Joker is overrated in some ways. And I think it's just because he has the flaw of he never stays stuck in, like in, oh my gosh, in, what's it called? Sorry, I'm blanking, but what is it? I'm going to have to search it up because I should not be blanking that much. Arkham. Yeah, Arkham Asylum. He never stays in Arkham Asylum, and he's very overused, exactly like he said, Drafty. He's not the villain for every scenario. He's a good villain, and he's a good villain for Batman, but he is just not the, like, always applicable villain, in my opinion. So he's definitely overused. Harley Quinn, yeah, Harley Quinn too, right? She, just like Joker, she's been overused a lot. So, and then Mike said, I had one player for each archetype, and the different types of abilities worked well together. I believe tactical style players will love it. Yeah, that's awesome. It's so great to hear that. I really appreciate you sharing that. And seriously, it was so awesome that you jumped in our server and told us that you had run a session. That was so cool, especially hearing that it's going to take over the campaign that you're running. So seriously, one of the coolest things to hear. That's the first time I've heard somebody say that. So that was great. Thank you for sharing that, Mike. But yeah, I mean, that was the goal. So I'm really glad it works that way, where the every archetype has their role and purpose on a team. And so even though you could have overlap, the power sets and the way the power sets interact with the archetypes can definitely make them, they will be different. They might choose a lot of the same types of options. So, two bruisers, they might play very similarly where they want to run in and get hit. But we try to have them different enough to where, you could have multiple characters in the group of the same archetype with different power sets, and they can play quite differently, just as the archetypes make it a lot more obvious. But you could have 5 supers that have the fire manipulation power set, but because they're all playing different archetypes, they all play wildly different, especially in that case. 2 bruisers with different power sets will play a lot more similarly than 2 supers with the same power set but a different archetype, for sure. So, and that was the goal. They're all meant to have a role on a team. You can always function without them, but I think it's really important that they have their place on a team and like their role, and they don't really step on each other's toes too much. Personally, I think it makes a lot of fun to play each different archetype, and it makes them all feel important and impactful. Yeah, and as Peter said, I feel like Supers games, they end up being very very rules light, which nothing wrong with that, but I'm a big crunch guy, so I think it fits, and I don't see a lot of other superhero games that are crunchy. Now, granted, apparently MCDM wants to use the Draw Steel like game engine to make a superhero game down the line, but I think it sounds like that's like really far in the future, so hopefully we'll be established by then and we don't get squashed. That would be the other, like another, that would probably be some of like our biggest competition, because we would be going for a very similar audience. Yeah, I don't know, Peter, they went pretty fast on Draw Steel, to be fair. I mean, what, they had promised to deliver books in June of 25, and I think it looks like they're going to be done before that, maybe, or really close. Hey, Charles. Is that the Charles that I think it is? I don't know what your YouTube profile is, but if it is, my answer was based on the incorrect information. I totally read that you asked if it was Frank or Peter. Oh, okay, Drafty. So when I thought that it was Frank, between Frank or Peter, I was gonna say you, that wasn't on the list. But yeah, you guys are both hilarious. I guess Drafty then with that, I mean, from scratch, because they like barely started development of MCDM when they launched their Backerkit campaign, I think. Like they even said that they had like none of the game designed at all anyways. So, I mean, a year and a half is, even 2 years, that's pretty awesome, to be honest. Like, for example, I started designing Indominant in early 2020. So, I think that's a pretty fair time. We're talking about 5 years for Indominant, right? So, okay, PDFs June. That's kind of interesting. I thought they were already going into edit, like final editing pass. I guess I thought that meant of their final like book layouts, not of their like rules documents, if that makes sense, like their manuscripts. So total turnaround though. Yeah, to be fair, that's a good point, I guess. They did hire a whole team of folks to design Draw Steel. It seems like they've got a pretty big team, and I don't even know how many freelancers they have on the project. I know they have a few, but... And then, I don't know, Peter's pretty funny, but maybe it's just that he's charming, yeah. Oh, yes, Drafty, that's a really good question, because I've been thinking about this a lot. So, yes, we have some desire to do like a Bastion system that 5e has, and I really have a lot of influence from City of Heroes, and so they have super groups, and I'm thinking we might kind of steal that name, but having like a base, a home base or base of operations, absolutely, especially because, and hopefully you'll get to play in that session I'm trying to set up, that one shot, but we have like downtime practicing of skills, and so it would work really well, right, if you like built facilities in your base that maybe improved your practicing of your skills. That would be pretty cool, a pretty cool way to make it interact with multiple systems, I think. And then also crafting, of course. The way it like works in the background is pretty interesting with the bastions in 5e. So maybe something like that where you can have like, hired people come in and craft stuff while you're gone. But I don't think it fits as much like something like that does in a fantasy setting, right? Where it's like my, I hired a blacksmith. Like you could still have that in a superhero setting, but yeah, sidekicks. I think having stuff like that would be fun too. We have some ideas for sidekicks, where maybe they would be like playable characters, or they're characters that you can kind of control that are much simpler and weaker, and so they're just easier to control during gameplay. So yeah, hirelings. I think it makes sense, right, to have people that like work in your base of operations, or like a really cool thing to do would be that kind of oracle, right? The guy in the chair. That would be really cool. Oh, awesome. Oh, wow, it was 2 weeks ago, too. Okay. Yeah. That's awesome, Mike. I'm glad that they're working. It's funny because that was right about the time where we started up some new ads, and they were not performing super well, but I'm glad it got you. So they performed well enough in my book. And then we've started a new set since then that are doing really well, though, which is always good. Means our ad money is being well spent, which I appreciate. So, yeah. I will have to get going here in a moment. My kids have to go to sleep pretty early, and I need to actually eat dinner. So I'll answer, if anyone in chat has another question, I'll answer another question there, or I will answer one more question from our pre-asked questions here. That's why you were late, because you're a hireling? Or you're talking about your kids. Yeah, because you're 3 hours ahead, so you were putting your kids to bed, right, Charles? Yeah. For a second, I thought you were saying you're because of work, but I always have to remember I'm on the West Coast. Okay. Favorite artist, writer, or creative team for comics? That one's actually really hard. I'd have to kind of go back and look through at a few of my favorite stories and think about it. But if I'm being completely honest, as far as artist, I'm biased, but Milton I think is the best. Rob Liefeld's good for sure. I know he has. Rob Liefeld's the one. Hang on, before I actually say that, let me make sure I know who I'm talking about. He was the. Yeah, he was the one with the crazy Captain America chest. Yeah, okay, I was thinking of the right person. I don't know. I feel like that actually wasn't as bad as people made it out to be, if I'm being honest. This. Oh, jeez. Why am I? That's not what I'm trying to do. But yeah, this art piece right here, right? That's Rob Liefeld. And I know it's absolutely redonkulous looking. Like the chest is obnoxiously large. But, you're also the same way. Oh yeah, Mike, have a great night, Mike. I'm going to hop on here in a moment. Or hop off, sorry. But I'm so happy to hear that you enjoyed the game and your friends. So it'll be a absolute blessing to see more about the game, especially if you do that Facebook group where you discuss it. I will absolutely join that Facebook group and read those. Big chest, no feet. Yeah, I don't know. I think he got a lot of flack for that, but I don't think he was bad for sure. But with that, I'm going to have to get going. I appreciate everybody that hopped on and chatted with me. It was a lot of fun. I'm glad we had more questions and stuff. So, yeah. Thank you guys for joining, and have a great night. And, I watched before. I know I said I'm going to go, but I think I might have watched a similar video, Drafty. It's pretty cool. But anyways, have a good night, everybody. Thank you very much for joining me.